Welcome back to the Mandarin Blueprint Podcast. This week we did two podcasts. The other is an interview with Charlie Mosley from ChengduLiving.com. He's been here longer than us and has quite a storied history with living in Chengdu. And that was an interesting podcast. We talked to him about his story here, as well as some of the responses that we got to our posting the Mandarin Blueprint Method on Reddit and Chinese forums, which was kind of fun to explore. And today we're going to talk more about the emails and questions that came in. And so we'll get right to it. So first email.
Yeah, well, this one we actually received very recently, like an hour ago, less than an hour ago, from Chad. And we just wanted to put it at the top of the list here.
Yeah, this is really cool.
It's it's one of these just awesome, unique emails. So, hey guys, I just wanted to share this with you. I spent some time a few weeks ago watching Ron White's YouTube channel and learning more about memory palaces. There were some other sites that showed different sketches that people did of their own memory palaces as well that I looked at. So just an aside here. So for those that don't understand or aren't familiar with our methods, we use memory palaces, 13 in total with our method that apply to the various finals in Chinese. Now I know there's like more than 30 finals in Chinese technically, but we've reorganized, the system reorganizes the way we do it, so only 13. And as a way of doing that, Chad has sort of done it. Oh, let's keep reading, we'll see. I decided that it might be a good idea to organize my Chinese sets to better visualize them in my mind. So I came up with the RESSLER movie production company, where all movie sets are located. So RESSLER's his second name, so he sort of invented his own thing here. I like that. My fiance made this with her Cree cut. I'm not really sure what that is, but it's something to do with arts and craft. She has a crafting side business, but I get stuff for free. All the sets are alphabetical by Chinese final, with my childhood home being on its own. We sort of treat that as a separate place in a way. We place certain markers like trees I remembered or where the lawn was located. My father-in-law raises chickens, so on the set there is a rooster on the house. I spend time each day just looking at it and visualizing those sets in my mind so they aren't hazy. And I can picture myself sort of walking into each set. I have it out while I'm learning characters as well to prompt my mind to recall more details. Thought you might enjoy it, so I wanted to share it with you. So we put the picture of it down there for you guys to check out. It's it's a really cool thing, and we might actually start thinking about ways that we could incorporate this sort of visual representation into our course. Actually, just looking at this, maybe even some sort of template we could come up with where people can add in their own homes and their own little characteristics just to make it more fun.
100%. So this is an expansion on what we do, because we just said, okay, once you have your 13 places, just put yourself in your mind in that place. And that works. So like if you're already doing that, no problem. But what Chad has done here is kind of put them all in the same, I guess if you can imagine an empty field, he like draws a road in the empty field and places those locations from his past on the road. And, it immediately reminded me of the movie Inception. Yeah. So for those of you who've seen it, it's not a plot spoiler. There's a point in the movie where they're in like the dream space and they are observing Leonardo DiCaprio's character and his late wife's sort of explorations of that place, and they had a road where it was like, okay, here was the house we lived in when we were married, and then here was her childhood home, and like it was sort of all these different spots along it. And of course the environment around wasn't the actual environment of his late wife's childhood home. It was their new environment. So you could actually do that, and you can just make your own borders however you want. So
I've never thought about having a path, like there's a little road in the image here. I've never thought about having a path that connects all the different places together. And it's like it's a very cool idea that we're going to explore a little bit further, I think, and see if we can apply it to the general clientele that we have. So that's great.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's like it's not necessary in the sense that if you don't do it, you'll still be able to memorize characters, but I love everything about the way that you're thinking about it, because you're basically creating actually one overall memory palace, which is kind of more to the point. Usually what I always thought when we would say we have memory palaces, I'd be like, yeah, that's true, but it doesn't really feel like a newly constructed thing. But this is kind of like that. So well done, Chad. That's awesome.
This sort of thing makes me excited about what there is in the future for us as well regarding this course, because what we sort of, we've built the method based on like stitching together other things that we thought needed to improve, we could improve upon. And we've added our own things to it. And now we're going to share this with the world. And of course, people that are much smarter than us or much more creative or just have their own unique stories to tell or unique spin on things will be able to add their own stuff to it. We've already had, just in the years that we've been teaching it, and in the recent months that we've released it, we've had so many cool people give us suggestions that we've already incorporated into the course.
Right.
So this is another example of that sort of thing, and I'm just excited to see what else. And the way these sort of memory palaces and memory techniques work, whether it's for learning the characters or for learning words quickly or for who knows, acquiring grammar and whatnot, it just makes me excited about what we're going to be doing in like a couple of years' time. What sort of ideas that people will throw at us.
I remember when we were making this, I said to you, like, I don't know, maybe 6 months or 8 months ago, I said, it'll be so cool when the comments under each video include several suggestions from people. And even just today, we have like about 7 casting call suggestions and 8 prop suggestions, which just means that it really is a living course now. And that's like it's so cool to think that we just thought of that as like, oh, that would be cool when that happens. And now it's really happening. So it's really, really awesome. Thanks, Chad.
Yeah, cheers.
All right. This is Ryan from the email. This is more of a technical thing, but it's like worth telling you guys about. So Ryan says, the RSS feed for the podcast seems to lag behind the YouTube playlist by at least 4 days. Do you think it's possible to speed that up so I can listen to the responses you post sooner? And so the reason for this is that we always want to post the podcast about, we don't want to post it immediately because maybe we discover that there was an issue or there might be something that we want to clarify or change. So we like the idea of having a little bit of a lag time, but our solution to this in the previous, our like previous thinking of the solution was that our video editor, as soon as she's ready with the video and she's taken note of where all the questions are in the podcast, she'll upload the YouTube video unlisted and then respond to the comments in the course of the exact moment in the video when we responded to that comment. So that way, if the comment was left in the course, you'll get a response as soon as it's ready. But the problem is that we haven't really systemized that enough for the emails. So if you send an email and we should do a better job of that because it's just that our video editor doesn't have access to the our actual email server. So that's kind of our not being, we've been a little bit too 粗心 about that, which if you don't know that word, it means like kind of thick-hearted or thick thought. It's a kind of interesting word. It basically means careless, just a little bit too not focused on the user experience there. So we'll fix that up. We'll make sure that the emails also get that feedback right away to the YouTube video.
Yeah. But next one here is from DEVEN CHEN, who left a very nice comment for us on Reddit and
he also sent this to our email,
Chinese forums and email.
So just the context here, there were some people who were skeptical of the reality of people who were sending us these, we
already addressed that whole thing yesterday in the other podcast with Charlie there. We didn't realize the sort of faux pas we were making there. But obviously it didn't look real because all these wonderful people from our course were just making Reddit accounts with no history and saying, and also pasting the same response onto Chinese forums. And people, thought we were messing around.
It was one of those things like, just our naivete. But anyway, so Devin, but we still want to share these because these were quite interesting to read.
Some of them are genuinely, for me, quite moving as well. But we've already covered that yesterday. So
let's check it out.
So I recently decided to purchase a lifetime subscription to Mandarin Blueprint. Why did I do so? Why should you believe me? As a subscriber, I got an email asking to leave a comment about the product. Luke and Phil did not solicit a positive review, simply a comment. I'm here to share my experience just in case someone else can benefit from it.
Exactly. That's what we were hoping. Just to be clear, like that's what we wanted. We were like, hey, maybe other people, because we're like so DIЭN about the whole thing, which means naive and sort of like, just like, other people will love this. And then we went into Reddit and they were like, we hate you. Anyway, so that's the point though. Maybe other people will benefit from it. Anyway, go on.
I have no affiliation with Luke and Phil except as a customer of their product. If you read on, you'll just have to take my word for it, but for especially beginners, you might just end up learning something. My Chinese journey story, : my folks came from China originally, but like many overseas Chinese, I've lost touch with culture, language of the motherland. I've had the pleasure of taking classes for 1 year in my local Californian city. It's been a blast. My instructor's methodology is to take a deep dive into the language. The result is that even though I still struggle to have even the the simplest of conversations, even Google Translate in enough time, even with Google Translate in enough time, I can generate a reasonably correct ba sentence. It's like a type of grammar structure there. Even a bei, like a passive and active sentence.
Sure.
At this point, I've covered up to 300 characters. I have the following problems. Number one, my pronunciation sucks big time. That's a very common one. It's a royal pain. Number two, it's a royal pain trying to remember the 300 characters with non-immersive language exposure such as mine. Number three, my time is limited. I've tried several language apps to help with these problems, but having come across Mandarin Blueprint, I really, really, in capital letters, like Luke and Phil's methodology. Whenever I'm struggling to remember characters for my next quiz, I keep saying to myself, there's got to be a better way. And I believe I've found the better way with their approach. I have a scientific background by training in Mandarin Blueprint's science-based methodology for associative-based memory storage and retrieval is intuitively appealing. The pronunciation course is one of the best I've come across. Thanks very much. If I were to fault it, it would be simply request more practice and test exercises for tones, for example, say 40 to 60 per shot, as done by a different organization. I didn't quite get that last bit. What does that mean?
Yeah, I'm not sure. It says the exercise for tones say 40 to 50 per shot. I think maybe what he's saying is to add 40 to 50 per. Like, not exactly what he means by shot. Like maybe means 40 to 50
shot.
per
Video?
Per concept, maybe. I'm not sure exactly what he means. But he's just basically saying add more tests and
This
practice.
is an absolutely justified criticism of the pronunciation mastery. You know, it says it doesn't have that much testing in it, and obviously we can't give feedback because it's a video course. And
there are 35 quizzes within it, but maybe there's some other things that we would need to do. But I will say this just briefly is that if you have any pronunciation that you want us to correct, take a little video with your phone, send us something that you've done, and we'll talk about it on the podcast.
Like and also the private Facebook group that we have, you get an email when you sign up to any of our courses inviting you to that. We can if you add us to that, and we can have a little private discussion within that group as well. We had a gentleman post a couple of videos in there with his pronunciation. We'll help him out.
Sure.
But direct messages is fine as well. I am 1/3 of the way through the language course, and will soon start actual Mandarin Blueprint course, the Mandarin Blueprint Method. But I am optimistic and confident this path offers me a way out of rote memorization hell. Hope someone out there finds this helpful. Well, I'm sure they would. There's a lot of information in there. Thanks a lot, Dev.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing that I think he's getting at the point that was precisely the thing that we, were focused on, which was if the problem with Mandarin learning is not that grammar is difficult or that, the language is not logical. It's that the foundational structure of the language is really hard to learn, and the methods for it at the moment are not very good. They're usually rote memorization, or in many cases simply skipping it entirely and going right to words and sentences and hoping that people can kind of deconstruct it down, which is part of why I speculate that the reason why so few people succeed is it's only like really smart people who succeed because they have a better ability to deconstruct like a word that has two characters they don't
really
know.
Diligent.
And diligent is also the case, but diligence that requires 10 years or something like that, right? It's like, it's not a good method. Whereas if you can get a good method for those foundational materials, then when you get to those super logical words and grammar structures, you go, oh, well, this is easy. And so that's the whole point there. Rote learning is an absolute waste of time. So
yeah. Well, we can jump into this make a movie.
Sure.
Got another one by Chad on character 69. Fu, as in Fuqian, like to pay. The location is the backyard, fourth tone, of course. So it's in the backyard of his childhood home, and that'll be the set. And the actor is Fung Yu-Sau. Chad likes to use kung fu movie characters for his fictional group, and props, as in the 3D objects or people or animals, whatever, that represent the components would be Chuck Norris, representing the male component, and the wheel width caliper. Now, this is a specific thing to his expertise. It's a specific tool that he has used.
But admittedly, this component does kind of look like it. It looks like that measuring tool. At first, I didn't know what it was when he first said it, but now looking at it, it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm in the backyard of my childhood home running an illegal gambling operation. Good start. On the side of the garage, I have a giant odds chart with pays written above it. Chuck Norris is set to square off against Fung Yu-Sau. Fung Yu-Sau stands facing Norris, holding a wheel-width caliper up to him and says that he can defeat him using only that as a weapon. All of the bettors suddenly start putting them, betting people, start putting their money on Fung Yu-Sau. Norris looks at my chart, sees he's no longer the favorite, gives me a $100 bet on himself, and defeats Fung Yu-Sau with a single roundhouse kick. We look up, of course he does. We look up at the chart, and under pays, we see that Norris has won $100,000. So you've got the idea of fool there. You've got the props. The fact that you've added like pays and 100 like specific numbers and stuff. That stuff is very written, and images and words and even digits don't tend to be remembered that well. But I love that you did it anyway because it adds a flavor and a context that's very specific to the scene. So you're very likely, or most people would be very likely to forget those specific numbers. And the actual what's written on the chalkboard and stuff like that,
but the numbers aren't the meaning. So
the numbers don't. Yes, that's not the point. The point is the paying, and it's awesome as usual from Chad. That's another.
So what I like about this is that this is only character number 69. So that means that Chad has already mastered how to do this. So that means that in the future he just quickly goes, okay, what are my props? Who's the actor? And he's of course with that new sort of set. That he's his memory palace that has all of his sets in one place that he talked about earlier. He's going to easily be able to remember all of his sets, and so that part becomes quick. And I'm telling you, that's how it goes. Like you get to a new character, and we used to figure it out without it being written down. And of course, in the Mandarin Blueprint method, it's all just written there for you. So you'll know immediately. Okay, where am I? Who's there? What are the objects? And that if that part gets done quickly, there's a little bit of, okay, what's my connection to the keyword and what will I think of here? But sometimes you'll think of something instantly, and then you just imagine a quick interaction, and then the next thing you know, you've got a full scene in 30 seconds to a minute. And then if you review with Anki and find out, oh, the scene was a little weak here because I forgot this element, or maybe you never forget it ever, then you succeed in quickly getting a character down. And if you can do it that quickly, how many can you do a day? Can you do 15 a day? How about you've been doing it for a month? Can you now start doing 40, 50 a day? It's definitely possible.
100%
and so,
possible. We did it like, we're not especially smart guys particularly, but we did it without, everything in front of us. So you can definitely do it.
Right.
And also I would like to, just another quick comment about this is that, Chad is clearly not doing this for his own benefit now. He's just doing it to share his stories with the rest of the community to help them, because obviously he doesn't need to write them down. But we recommend that even if you think that your story is not quote unquote as good as these or whatnot, our favorite scenes to a large degree are the simplest ones. Like John who's actually in our course, John Sweeney. His stories were so A to B, straightforward, and even if you think you've got time or you can be bothered to just write one or two sentences that sum up your story, even if it's not as detailed as this, or you don't necessarily tell the location or the actors or whatever, just see just share it with the community. If it's working for you, share it, and please, as long as it's got nothing too naughty in there as well.
And that's great. And by the way, this is what's funny about this is that Chad is the one that people like who were on the Reddit Chinese forum situation were most skeptical of. They were like, this guy is obviously not true. And it's like, oh my gosh, he's like completely genuine. The whole
like, Chad, you like us too much. You don't look
ZHÂNG
real.
is this Chinese name, and of course ZHÂNG is like Chad. It's a trying to come up with a something that sounds phonetically similar to Chad. So it's like it was pretty funny that they were most skeptical of him. Anyway.
Next one is from Daniel Leo Simpson on character number 5. Gan, meaning dry, is the it's a word lesson. So once we teach a character, if that character is also a word, so gan can be used sort of on its own, say dry or chair or whatever the word is, we have a separate lesson that points that out to you. And we give you a few sentences and stuff. And his comment is, not clear as to why the character is being taught as gan with the first tone, and the example sentence, or one of the example sentences given, is a fourth tone. 你在干什么? Oh, sorry. 你干什么工作呢? As in, like, what work do you do? So this is an example of what we call a 多音字, which is literally multiple tone characters. And it makes up, I heard a stat, I'm not sure if this is 100% correct, I heard it makes up about 20% of common characters that you need to learn.
There's an alternative pronunciation or 2 or 3.
Yeah, like they have different tones, or sometimes they'll have a completely different pronunciation. Like the initial, the final is all different. Right. And when that happens, that means that the meaning is almost definitely going to be very different.
Right.
Or somewhat different. Now, we were sort of at a crossroads about this when we first started devising this system and putting it all together. We were like, well, we don't really, because when we learnt it, we didn't bother learning every single different pronunciation. If there's a character that's a 多音字, a multiple tone character, we didn't bother learning all the different tones. We just learned the most common, or what seemed like the most common or the most useful one, and then naturally through exposure we understood the other different pronunciations and what their usages are and meanings are.
To do that,
so think of this method, the hands and moving method, the character learning thing. You're just building your base understanding of a character. There's no need to spend extra time, because some characters have 3, 4, 5 different pronunciations. I'm not sure what the most is, but some of them have a lot, and there's no way that all these different pronunciations are as common in terms of usage,
right,
and how useful they're. So we've just chosen what we think is the most useful one, and you're going to use the hands and movement method to learn it in that particular tone. But there will be a lot of times when it has a different pronunciation.
And another way you can think of it is like this: so that there's 20% of all characters that have an alternate pronunciation. Amongst that 20%, only a small percentage is the alternate pronunciation also frequent, right? Now, in this case, it happens to be that character number 5 is this situation where there's 2 pronunciations, both of which are very frequent. It happens a few other times. Like
you could argue even that gan, the 4th tone, is maybe more common.
Yeah, it's funny that it happened this way, because the reason it's character number 5 is because it's such a simple character. It's just the number 10 with the number 1 on top of it, or the number 2 with the stick. It depends on how you think of it. But basically, it's a simple character from a component perspective. And it just happens to be that it has these 2 pronunciations. But here's the point. When you learn the first one with the first tone, you've learned the components. You've learned a very important meaning. You've learned the pinyin initial, the pinyin final, and the idea that you cannot, from that point, easily learn an alternative is not true. Like, you don't have to learn it all at once, nor should you, because that's overwhelming your beginner's mind. What you should be doing at the beginning is getting a basis, and then later, when you see it in context, when you know many more characters, you know many more words, and you realize, oh, here, it's an alternative meaning. My experience of it the entire time was just like, oh, so you can use it that way as well. And I don't have to relearn it. I don't have to do a whole new memory palace scene for it.
Yeah.
It's because at that point, you're more advanced and you can learn in other ways. At the beginning, there's only so many things you can do to learn. When you get further along, there's way more potential connections you'll get.
But that speaks to like how we, as sort of our philosophy of learning, or what we've come to learn about learning, how learning works. You build on what you already know. So you have to have that foundation first, and then you can build up on it. We use the same concept when it applies to words and even grammar. We're really like trying to work out how to introduce different grammar concepts or different sentences and what order to do that in. But it's
and it's a little bit of insight into my thinking about this, and I'm sure that you've thought this a lot too. Is that there's this part of me that goes, no, show everything about it, so that if somebody who knows Chinese is criticizing us, then we can say, oh, but we did do everything. But that's not empathetic to a beginner learner. That would be us being insecure about how people interpret our course. It's like, no, you're going to see gan plenty of times in the future. We don't need to teach it right now. So instead of overwhelming you, the beginner, with this extra information that isn't necessary to learn right now, we'll introduce it to you later. Like, we, for example, will teach the 3rd tone sandy rule with just 2 third tones in the pronunciation mastery. And then later we'll say, okay, what about if you have 4 fourth tones in a row, or 4 third tones in a row, or 3 third tones in a row, as opposed to just being like, learn everything right now and overwhelm you. It's like, just give you the main thing you can understand and then move on. So, cool.
I'll just read another one by Daniel.
Yeah, this was interesting. This is
this is going to speak to a lot of people just starting with the course. I think this maybe this is working because I just paused the video and just from what I've learned already thought, shoo, S-H-U with a fourth tone. Well, that's bathroom. So I saw Gandalf or Moses in his mind, his staff plunging down the toilet, but it had a shoe on top of the staff forcing in the toilet like a plunger instead of the shoe.
So he's doing a pronunciation mnemonic with that. By the way, this is a comment on the video about stroke order and like strokes in general. It's like an introduction video to stroke order. So continue.
So instead of the shoe, I guess it should have been the SH actor, but shoe just seemed to come into my head. And then I saw Heng, H-E-N-G with a second tone. Well, that's the kitchen because it's the second tone, which made me think of a Rodney Dangerfield I'd just seen on YouTube. I guess that's YouTube Tonight. She cooks so bad the roaches in the kitchen hung themselves. Wow. So I saw a horizontal row of roaches, hung, that's what hung can mean, there. And then pie with a third tone, P-I-E. Well, that's my bedroom. And pie, P-I-E, is pronounced like piede in foot in Italian and pie in Spanish. And it does indeed look a bit like a foot. So I imagine myself kicking the bottom of my dresser repeatedly with my foot. I can easily remember all three right now. The name, the character, the tone, no problem. I simply stopped there because I wanted to get on with the video. And I know I'm not doing it correctly because I'm not using actors for the pinyin, shoe, hung, foot, etc. But it does show that instinctively I started moving with associations even though I have only a limited amount of material from the course already at this early stage. Promising, very promising.
So this is so interesting to read because overall, I love that Daniel's doing this, right? Because what he's essentially getting across here is that, he's already trying to think in this way. But I can tell you also, Daniel is definitely a super analytical guy for sure. He seems like he's probably quite a go-getter in the sense that he wants to figure things out in his own, and which is great. This is what's interesting is that these points are they're kind of separate from the Hansa movie method. They're just you talking about the strokes.
Well, this is just him unloading what the course has triggered in his mind, right? This is not him actually like saying, oh, I want to do it differently, or this is how I think. He's just like saying, my mind just... The videos he was watching, the concepts, I guess he's never really done this sort of thing before, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And I remember this feeling as well. Like once you start sort of hacking into your imagination, which is what this sort of method tends to automatically do for you, your mind can just run away with you. And you can start imagining all sorts of crazy stuff.
But it's interesting because what he did was he kind of just started going into, well, should I be using an actor here? And it's kind of like, when I read it, I wanted to be like, oh, you don't need to, this is just a video that's about some theory about strokes. It's not like you need to have your H actor with your ENG set. But the fact that he's thinking that way tells me that he's getting, because it is true. Like, look, what mnemonic visualization is all about is just finding the trigger that's going to bring something up you already know. Right, so you already have seen Rodney Dangerfield. You've already seen the dresser in your bedroom that you might kick with your foot. Like these are all things that exist already somewhere in your brain. The key is to trigger them at the right moment and associate that trigger with the particular thing you're trying to learn in Chinese, and that's what the system's all about. Cool.
Great. Another quick movie from Chad on character number 71, Cai. As in, well, it means a couple of things, but gāngzhāi, like just now, just happened, or it could also mean talented. So the location is second tone kitchen of his old trailer. Actors Christopher Walken and props, razor blade, hockey stick, samurai sword. So 3 props for this particular character. Christopher Walken is hanging out with me in the kitchen of my old trailer and still can't walk very well. I told him that Phil Crimmins said that we couldn't use his walker because from Phil's perspective, that wasn't a very good idea.
That's a response. That's a response to a previous question he sent in. Anyway,
Christopher said he still needs something to help him walk, so I offered to go down to the medical supply store because the only thing I have in the kitchen is a razor blade, hockey stick, and samurai sword. He said,
"Sorry, this is such a funny thing. That's all I have in my kitchen."
He says, "Okay." I go to start my car, but I realize I forgot my wallet and go back inside. Walking in, I see Christopher has built a 4-arm crutch with the razor blade, hockey stick, and samurai sword. Surprised, I asked him what he did, and he replies, "I built this just now." and hobbles away complaining that he doesn't have his walker. So that one, yeah, I mean, just now is the definition or the keyword that we gave for this particular character. And like that could be, because Christopher Walken is really animated and he's an actor and a very good one at that. So I can imagine, like, because just now is really difficult, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or at least at first glance, like, how do you communicate just now? But you could imagine him using certain body language to indicate that meaning very clearly. So I think that could work.
Yeah, I think I even might have suggested, it's a while since I wrote this, but I think I might have suggested in the notes for that particular one that, or maybe in the video, I can't remember, but the idea that you do something and you walk away, your angle leaves for a second, and then you go back and something's changed, and you're
maybe
like...
he's like out of breath. He's like, he's just done it, you know?
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
there's all sorts of stuff you could do. And a lot of people who are maybe a little bit inexperienced with this method, they might think, how the heck am I going to do that? But it's very simple with just a little bit of acting skills. That's what we call it.
If I were to like make a little bit of an improvement to this story, it's the crutch that he makes out of the razor blade, hockey stick, and samurai sword. I think would be totally. I can imagine it. I can potentially, but maybe do something to get them individually a little bit more involved. So like maybe the top of the crutch is like the edge of the razor blade. So like you imagine you are Christopher Walken, you're like, that's gonna cut my arm. Like, you don't have to have it actually. Could imagine it feeling it there, like oh, and then the hockey sticks below that, and then maybe the samurai sword is like he has in his other hand to kind of like knock things out of the way and help him on that that side. Really feel it tactily in your body, and then that will help a little bit more to make sure that you know exactly which one they are. Tactile response is really it's underutilized, I think, a lot of times with mnemonic visualization. I didn't utilize it enough, I think, when I used to do this every day.
It's key to actually involve yourself a little bit in these sorts of situations, get in there and pick it up or watch Chris or help him make it or something like that. Like with duct tape and stuff. So there's loads of little things you could do there. Another story here from Ryan Smith on character 112, ZHqədng, as in type. So my actor is my Uncle Jay, and the props are an archery target. That's the zhong, bullseye on a hay bale, and a stalk of wheat. That would be the left component, the he. Location around my desk in my office. That's the tone somewhere. We used to have a ping pong table.
All right, so that's the ONG.
Yeah,
cool.
The keyword connection. I was having issues coming up with a way to visualize type of, understandably. So I decided to mix in type of along with a homonym of to type on a keyboard. Interesting. To make sure it was obvious to me. Uncle Jay is sitting on my desk at work, programming on my computer. He gets bored, so he starts typing furiously on the screen in an archery made on the screen. Until on the screen an archery target made of straw appears. But he programmed in the wrong type of target. So he quickly types some more until the picture on the screen changes to be a target made of wheat, readily apparent by several overly magnified individual stalks of wheat sticking out the side. What do you think about that one?
It's interesting. I mean, I like the doubling up of the homonym. So like that's the idea that our brains are smart enough to know that the real definition of this is type of, like there are many different types of targets or wheat or cameras or whatever. But because there's this homonym of typing, you can get, that's more visual, that's clearer. So you can use that as your trigger, and then you just make the quick link. So that's perfectly fine. And so let's see, he's looking at so we have to get the prop involved with the target by changing it, right? So the archery target's definitely clear. And then he makes it of wheat. So I suppose that could work. I mean, I certainly think that, also, I know that Ryan is a programmer, I think, because he gave us some Anki code at one point. So maybe this really sticks out with him as well from that perspective. I don't think this scene would probably work for me, but like that's partially because of my experiences of never been a programmer and all that. But I can see it, I can imagine it. And
for type of, like, how would you go about this? So we got some, I would also use wheat, and I would use an actual bullseye. But for type of, I would maybe, and this is sort of a bit of an unusual one, but we could maybe use different colors or forms of the props throughout the movie. There.
Sure.
Just off the top of my head, I can imagine maybe throwing wheat to try and stick it into the dartboard.
Yeah.
which would be for me a dartboard, right? And then he has like 6 different types, and they're very clearly different. Like one's very ostentatious, one's very like made of wheat maybe, or something like that. One's blue, one's pink, and he's like different types, and he's sticking the wheat in every single one.
What's funny to me is that even though I'm not as much of a gamer as you are, what this reminded me of was like the different sort of weapons you could choose in a game. Because like first of all, when I think of type up, I go, well, what are the it's basically type up is kind of like categories or type of almost anything.
What class of character are you? Are you an elf or what are you?
Right, exactly. And so I just imagine like the wheat strands. I was on that same wavelength of the wheat strands, but instead what they are is they're different types of wheat darts. Essentially, you've got one that's like a black razory type, and then there's another one that's more like looks like a classical arrow, and like you're kind of which type of one do I want? Okay, I'll try this type. Throw it at the target or whatever. Right. That was sort of a thought I had there.
Yeah. But
by the way, this is an example of where we're different from the HiZig method. So HiZig teaches this as an alternative, the DI榎N of 种, which means to plant, and then so like plant a seed, which is a fairly common usage, but 种 as in type is way more common. Like you're going to use that all the time, and so we said, look, I get why he did to plant or seed, right? Because that way it's easier to visualize, but it's not the most common one. So we're like, we're confident there's enough you can do to come up with the idea of a relation to type of, especially after doing the first 105 characters and the 300 videos or so that we use to teach the method, that you'll be able to do that, and then you have the most common meaning right off the bat. So yeah, it's pretty important. Also, 种 is often used in the same way as 个. It's often used as a measure word. So like, if I say 一个手机, right, one cell phone, or 两种手机, it's not the same as 两个手机. 两个手机 is just saying there are 2 phones, but if you say 两种手机, you're saying 2 types of phone. So that's a kind of important distinction. I just wish somebody had told me that earlier, because like you can just almost always replace 个 with 种 and it'll be correct. Okay.
So another last make a movie here, and then we'll move on to a bunch of pick or prop suggestions that we got this week.
We'll do them like rapid fire, but
we'll
cool.
We'll smash through them. So Chad RESSLER on character number 79, DIliwon, as in either to order, or I believe it's a dot in this case. That's the keyword, like
dots
a DIliwon.
That character is pretty dynamic.
Very much so. So the location, living room, is his grandma's house. Actor is DIliwon, his landlord.
Perfect.
And props, Iwo Jima Memorial, Iwo Jima Memorial, and campfire.
Okay.
So that's the Jan component, like to occupy.
Right.
Iwo Jima. Huh. My landlord DIliwon and I are in the living room of my grandma's house. DIliwon says that she wants to paint the walls because she doesn't like the plain white and suggests a grey colour. I tell her that it will not look good and that she's not allowed to paint anyway. Furious, she tells me it will look good and that she will prove it. Suddenly, she builds a campfire in the middle of the living room, grabs a miniature replica of the Iwo Jima Memorial that my grandma has, and melts it down in a pot. She then takes a brush and paints a little dot on the wall and says, there, it will look fine. Smashed it.
Yeah, I like it. And, I think that the beginning of this is totally a chance to do overacting and facial expressions. She's like, because you can imagine this whole thing happening without any actual words, like a silent movie type of thing. Like, she's looking at the wall and she's like, And then Chad's like, no, you can't paint. And then like she's like angry. Yes, I can. You don't have to have the actual words. You can just have the expressions get across the same idea.
And can you imagine the difference between, say, that and then just, just doing the actions, just melting the Iwo Jima thing and just doing that? Like, can you imagine the difference of like how much more memorable the first version would be?
Right.
Like, compared to just do it. So it's not just about the actions; it's also about being there and living it and adding emotions and memories.
Also, for me personally, I'd probably put a lot more dots on the wall. Like as soon as he explained what the situation was, I was imagining like a totally polka dotted whole room. You know what I mean?
We say that a lot, don't we? Like to really ram it into the ground. Like imagine you're doing it. Because it's called the movie method, not just because we use actors and stuff, but we chose that name for it because it's like making a mini movie, and that includes having acting in it. But you want to do it like you're doing it for the cheap seats. So like you're saying, I am doing a dot, in case you don't notice, doing a big dot, and I'm doing it a lot. Really overact and as if you've got a very a very low level audience that doesn't really get stuff, right? You got to really show them.
Yeah.
Good. So let's just smash through these pick a props. There's so many good ones here. So we've got first one here, pick a prop for character number 17, Ba, as in number 8. So pick a prop for that figure. He chose the August calendar. Ba kind of looks like an A, and August is the 8th month of the year. This is a tough one because, you've got to be careful with things that are based on 2D images. So to know it's August, you might have to see, I don't know, like trees with brown leaves or something. Otherwise, there's not, or the number 8 or the word August. Now, we're not any good at any of those three things, really. 3D objects is what we're number one at in terms of this. So, and it's just a calendar. It could represent month. It could represent year, right? So I would say maybe that. And also August is like a degree of separation from 8 as well.
Yeah, I mean, he's saying it's 8th month of the year, and they do call it 八月 in Chinese. But it's there's it's one of the things that could, as always, it could work, but I wouldn't recommend this type of thing because, again, why isn't it June? Why isn't it? Why isn't the whole prop calendar some representation of a calendar? So it's not necessarily super clear because you always have to have empathy for your 6 months from now self.
Yeah.
But then on the other hand, you have an Anki card for it. You might just remember anyway because you wrote it in your Anki card. So, but overall, I would say 3D object is better.
Yeah.
Okay.
Another one by NONAME on character 12, as in noon. Pick a prop, of course. Kind of looks like a can opener opening a can. Okay, done.
Sure.
Yeah, that's fine then. If it looks like that to you, that is now your prop for that.
You know what's interesting?
One solid object though is better.
Yeah.
If you can. Yeah.
It's funny. I thought when I saw that comment come in, I didn't see which lesson it was from. I just saw that comment came in, and I thought it was going to be for 字, like 自己的字, because that's a little 3 thing. Like I could imagine the bottom part is a can, and then the top part is like a thing that's opening the can. It was interesting because obviously it doesn't look like a can opener to me, but hey, if it works like that's fine. If you see what it looks like, the character looks like, and you think that looks like an object, do it. That's easy, right? It looks like that, so I'll just imagine that.
Excellent. Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. Chad Wrestler, character 78, Jan. Yeah, this is what you already referred to. Yeah, so Jan, you can see it in the comments there. It actually means to occupy, and he went with Iwo Jima because soldiers raise the flag to represent the base. And the flag represents the top portion of the character. America occupied Iwo Jima, that's what the character means, until 1968.
Yeah, it's perfect. That's
Perfect.
great.
Excellent.
Very iconic cultural trope too. I mean, I think everybody's seen that picture.
Another one from Chad's character 75, xia, meaning down, to pick a prop. I went with a car lift. It incorporates the shape of the meaning because we work below under the lift. A car lift. I guess the ones in mechanic shops and stuff.
Oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, nice.
Ryan Smith on character number 106.
Oh, and also, by the way, just on that car lift point, after it goes up, you've got a thing on top with I'm sure, like a pole right in the center, which looks like xia to some degree. It's like missing that one little part, but yeah. Anyway, sorry.
So it adds, covers both there, the appearance and the meaning. Ryan Smith on character 106, dai, can mean a couple of things, but stay or stupid. I like a little white lab mouse holding a flower as a nod to one of my favorite sci-fi stories.
Oh,
Flowers
nice.
for Algernon.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know if you've ever read that book.
Yeah, but what's the connection, Flowers for Algernon, to sci-fi? What's the connection there?
Well, in Flowers for Algernon, the character goes from being very, very mentally challenged to being very smart, and then goes back to being mentally challenged. And so, like, maybe because the character, the keyword we give for this is dumb, and so it's probably that. And let me just see if there could be another reason. I don't think so. I think that's what it is.
Right, cool,
nice. And that is a great book, by the way. Yeah.
Chad Wrestler, character 74, Shang. So we just did this one, Shang meaning above. I went with Shang Di, which was the supreme god during the Shang dynasty. Okay, excellent.
Yeah, that's interesting because the Xia dynasty, or was it? No, I think it was the Shang dynasty. One of them is mythical. They're like, if you go back into Chinese dynasty history, this is the beginning of that like timeline about 2,000 years ago or so. And one of them is real, and one of them is kind of like a myth. I'm forgetting right now which one it was. I think it was the Xia was like sort of came before, and they built their society on the idea of how this story of what the dynasty was like, and that's why it's a huge influence on Confucianism and all of that. So that's kind of an interesting connection there. It seems like Chad really knows a lot about Chinese history and all of that stuff.
Another one from Chad here, character 73, Bo. It's sort of related to divination. I went with a magical guandao, something that might be used by a Shaolin monk in a wuxia movie. Excellent.
All right, nice.
Another one from Chad here, character 72, Ya, meaning tooth. Pick a prop, the teeth on the shark from the movie Jaws. So I guess it's got the actual set of teeth there.
I just saw the movie, it was about the USS Indianapolis. You know that story? Like then all these guys, after the boat was sunk, were just in the water, and there were just all these sharks around. And it was so it's like that type of thing. Jaws is iconic, but shark teeth. I mean, way better than just a tooth. I think if you can imagine a shark swimming around in the air somehow.
Yeah, and then we've got Sydney Green on character 210. ZHÏNG. Pick a prop. I have chosen a pair of fixed binoculars on a stand as a prop for this one.
I see it. Yeah, if you imagine that you're looking at the profile of it.
Oh yeah.
And like the right side of it is like where you're looking through. Yeah, sure. Totally. Nice.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And also, by the way, that character can mean like can or able to. So it's like, now you can see once you're looking through the binoculars. So that's kind of interesting. Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move on to the casting calls, and we'll start off with a post from NONAME on character number 69, Fu. So casting call, just for those who don't know, it's a way of we encourage you to choose someone from your life or someone that you know or a character that you know to represent one of the initials of the pinyin for the characters we're going to be covering. There's 55 in total, and they're broken up into 4 different categories: male, female, fictional, and gods or world leaders. So this person says, it seemed to me that it was the most important to have the actor's name closely follow the sound to either the front or the end of the name. So I just went with foodie as the actor and have a picture of a random but stereotypical looking foodie, in brackets, hipster. Thoughts? Well, I would say it's best to choose someone specific, someone that you know personally or that you know a lot about, say a celebrity or maybe a character that you like from a film or a cartoon or whatever it is. The reason being, well, there's a couple of reasons. Number one is that having some sort of emotional connection to someone will inherently make them more memorable. Yeah. And the second, possibly most important one, we mentioned this in a lot of the videos that we do, the cast and call videos. We mentioned that if the better you know a character or a person, or at least the more you know about them, the easier you can predict how they would act in certain situations. And that makes it so much easier to write these movies. I've got to stop doing these air quotes. To write the movie scenes that we ask you to do for these characters. If it's just a foodie, like, it's a general thing. First of all, you might not really the way they look might change from scene to scene, and yeah, you have to kind of well, here's what I said in the response. I said, look, just take it another step, which is that you've got the idea of a relationship to a hipster from foodie. Foodie sounds like foo, so we just keep doing the linking method one more step, which is, okay, you've got a hipster. There are hipstery characters in fiction. Shaggy? Sure, Shaggy from Scooby-Doo could work. That would be, and that just came to your mind because you thought of who's like sort of a hipstery kind of. He's always wanting food anyway, as far as I can remember. Yeah, so take it out a step further. Exactly. Yeah, so it's like just take it one step further and think of somebody specific. Once you think of somebody specific, then it'll work. But everything else that Luke said is right, because a made up person in your mind isn't nearly as dynamic as a real person, or a real character that you can imagine their personality. All right, cool. Same guy for character number 10 for Ru, as in to enter, so that's R-U, so that's another fictional actor we'd ask him to make, and he's chosen Rudy from the movie, which is based on the real person, but he's fictional. Well, I mean, the movie was Sean Astin playing Rudy, and so he's probably imagining Sean Astin as... Yeah, it's fine. That works completely. Yeah, perfect. Chad on character 73, Bull again, but for the choosing the person for BU, the fictional actor for that. Black Mask, Jet Li's character in the movie Black Mask. I saw that. It's a very, very good film. It's one of my favorite Kung Fu films. And Chad also put in character 69, Fu, as well. little character that we talked about earlier, but for the FU, that'd be Fung Yu-Sau. We've already covered that.
I wish that I knew any of these kung fu movies, but haven't seen any of them.
You get on it, mate. Another one from Chad here, 68, Guo. So that'd be G-U. It's another fictional actor, a gremlin. Gremlin from the 1984 movie. So I guess he means I'm assuming he means the main little cute one, but who knows?
Sure.
One of those.
Look very iconic character.
Any gremlin would really work, to be honest, for that. So no name again on character 84, Mu, meaning eyeball. So this is for MU, another fictional. I was going to go with Mutant Ninja Turtles, but he went with Mufasa in the end from Lion King.
Yeah, sure.
It's a great choice.
I mean, for me, I would have gone with the Mutant Ninja Turtles, but, like, you know, that's still... by the way, if you wanted to do Mutant Ninja Turtles and have it be all 4 of them, that's fine. Like, you could totally do that, and that would be kind of fun.
Oh, yeah.
You could have more personalities in your scene every time.
I remember actually responding to this next one myself, Gary Busey, because I've just seen Lethal Weapon again for about the millionth time recently, and, That guy is memorable, to say the least. Oh, yeah. I think Gary Busey, I think I was reading about this, so I'm not sure if I'm getting this correct, but Gary Busey, I think, has the title of being the actor who has been killed most in movies. Everybody thinks it's Sean Bean, but Sean Bean's pretty famous for it because he's died in so many iconic movies, but I'm pretty sure the article I read was like, it's actually not Sean Bean, it's Gary Busey, and it had a list of just all the movies he's been killed in. So, yeah, he's a pretty iconic guy. Oh, he wasn't even killed in Lethal Weapon. Okay. Yeah. Interesting. Right. Okay, we'll finish with a comment from Reddit from Luke Taylor, who is one of our most sort of impressive students on the course. He's actually almost finished with the whole thing, which is awesome, because that means that it's been less than 3 months because he started in January. So let's see here. He says, as someone who has just about completed the Mandarin Blueprint course in its current form, I thought I'd offer my thoughts for anyone on the fence. I started the course as a complete beginner, knowing next to nothing about the language other than 你好 and 谢谢. After slightly more than 3 months, I can confidently say I know more than 600 characters and 1,000 words. Not just how to read and speak, but how to write with the correct stroke order. The usage of memory palace is obviously not new and has been used in language learning in the past, but it's never been presented in such a linear manner, which makes the learning process seem a lot more manageable and less like an insurmountable mountain to climb. I've seen many people say using techniques like memory palaces just adds yet another step to learning and acquiring a new character or word, but this just isn't the case in my experience. After reviewing 3 to 4 times in Anki, I no longer need to refer back to the visualization. I can read and write a character as if it's a word in my native language. Moving forward, I'm continuing to learn the most frequent characters at an average rate of 10 to 15 characters a day using this method. I'm currently living with Chinese friends as a student in the UK, which is not only a benefit for my speaking and listening, but also a means of measuring my progress. I'm still far from understanding everything in a native conversation, but every day I recognize a new word I've just learned, adding to my motivation to learn even further. I'd like to thank Phil and Luke for providing such a groundbreaking course. I would fully recommend anyone still on the fence to check out the first free trial and get a feel for the program before committing, and of course checking out the now free pronunciation course as well. 谢谢啊，祝大家大吉大利. Okay, so that's awesome. And so there's a few things I want to comment on with this. So the first thing that he said was, you know, making the point that, of course, memory palaces aren't new. They're like the oldest thing that we teach. They've been around since the ancient Greeks, guys.
Yeah. And so, like, sometimes, you know, people are making a few comments in Reddit, like, if you want to learn language, it's simple. You just want to learn it and commit to it. And I'm like, well, okay, it's a little bit more complicated than that. That's true, but it's, like, very simplistic. Because what we realize is the problem is not that there aren't good techniques, it's that they're not systemized enough. So I was really happy to hear him say that it was exactly the linear, you know, step-by-step way of going through the curriculum. That's the other thing, too, is that most online Chinese learning resources aren't curriculums. They're just sort of like, here's a bunch of stuff. You know, there are some, but, like, it's, you know, this is the most systemized mnemonic visualization one for characters that also goes out into words and grammar. And, yeah, so did you have any comments you wanted to say?
Well, just that I know that Luke's going to do really well because he's got the right attitude. I'm not just saying because he likes us, but you can tell that he's got an inquisitive mind and he's just willing to try stuff.
Yeah.
And he's clearly a very diligent person, and he's going to be fluent in Chinese in very short time, much faster than we did.
And I also think that is a skill that you can develop. I'm not naturally much like that. Like I have an interest in, I'm sort of like intellectually curious, but I tend to be, it's something I've had to kind of encourage in myself when it comes to language acquisition is sort of okay, let's just be curious about this, not judge myself, not have negative self-talk about it, which is, that's always still there a little bit, but I kind of have a counter to it now that I've developed it over the years. And, there was another thing that he said here that's kind of a practical thing, which is we get a question that comes in a lot where people are like, am I going to have to remember these visualizations forever? It seems like a lot to keep in my mind. And I get that concern, although as Luke says, once you actually start to do it, you'll realize that A, you didn't need to be concerned about that in the first place, but B, no, you don't have to remember them, because what it is it's a thing that bridges the gap. It's a technique that bridges the gap between I don't know anything about Chinese to I have now seen this character or word in context so many times that it's like a word that I know in my native language, which is exactly what he said. And it's if you forget it in that interim period, like you learn a character in a rote memorization way, but you don't get a chance to see it in context enough, then you just lose it, and then you have to start over again. So the idea is that this Anki combined with great visualization techniques bridges that gap. So it's like, okay, you don't know enough yet to be able to see it in enough context. So what's the best way to remember it for the longest time? Well, spaced repetition software combined with incredible mnemonic visualization techniques in a systemized and linear manner. And then eventually, of course, we also provide lots of context, lots of paragraphs, lots of stories so that you do get to that point where it's like, got it in my memory, done. Right? And so that's great. I'm so happy that that's how it's going. It's like we still always wondered. We're like,
because this is all based off of how we learnt Chinese, what we thought were instinctually the things that are missing from it, and this entire course is us just trying to fill in the gaps of what is missing. And it's based on purely on our, we're entrepreneurs, we're taking risks, and we're thinking instinctually this needs to be out there. This is not out there, or this is out there, but it's nowhere near as good as it could be. This Mandarin Blueprint Method and pronunciation mastery is an improvement on what's out there.
Yeah. And I mean,
it's so nice to see that our instincts are clearly right, at least for.
Yeah, there's definitely instinct. I don't want to make it sound like we just like are guessing. We base this off of like
it's estimating based on what on our vast experience.
Well, it's like something.
Research.
One of the main things that happened was we when we read Sergei Gordish's Country of the Blind article that basically said here's how you could take the HiZig method, which we already had some issues with, but here's how you take the HiZig method that already exists and apply an extra mnemonic thing on top of it, and then we did it for 1,500 characters, which is like. If you do it for 1,500 characters and you remember the characters, it's like, okay, it works, right? And other people, online were saying, yes, this is working for me. But then we were like, but Sergey just has a method on his page that is not a good order because the HiZig order is no good. Not no good. It's just needs improvement. And so we were like, all right, we know that this method that Sergey uses works and is not just us. There's other people saying it works. We know that the HiZig method has frequency problems, which is objective. Like there's frequency problems of this character is introduced way too late. This character is introduced way too early. It's like there's, and that again, that's not just our instinct. So I agree with you that we did have a lot of instinctual things. I just don't want people to think we were just like, well, I just feel this way.
No. I mean, of course, it's based on all that years of research and hard work and experiencing pretty much every product that's out there, trying to get good at Chinese. And
there's still always that feeling of like, well, we think we have many reasons why we think this will work, but when you see something like that from Luke, it's like, oh,
so good. Oh man, yeah.
I'm relieved in a way. It's great. So
keeps us going, guys. That keeps us. We just want to keep pushing on with it.
Oh yeah, and why don't we just end with this? So we've been sometimes, posting on Reddit and posting on Chinese forums. There's this little thread that sometimes happens, and it's not everybody. Most people don't think like this, but they kind of seem to expect us to put out everything for free. And, we have our pronunciation course for free. We have a 10-day free trial, and we're going to soon turn that into the first 50 videos of the course are a free trial. But the point is, like, we have a free ebook, and we have free podcast, free blog, free a bunch of stuff. But we have this one thing that's a subscription service, and people are kind of seem like resentful that we would ever want to charge money. And I just I just want to say,
there was one gentleman that said, "Oh, I understand it's not free now whilst you're trying to get off the ground, but it'll be free later, right?" And it's like, no, it won't. we put 60 hours a week each into this. We work full time on this, guys.
Yeah, for three years at least.
3 years, and we've got nothing.
Over 3 years.
We've got very little back from it, and we're just starting to get some long-term paying clients, and I don't even know where to start with some of this sort of way of thinking. I don't
well,
really
look,
know how
it just comes down to this. It's a simple way to explain it. If we didn't charge any money, it's over. Like it's that we can't do it anymore. So like it's just we're two guys running this operation. We want it to work. We care about this greatly. We want to be able to do this, have people having the response like Luke had to doing the whole course, and then even extend it out to the HSK 6 level so that you could use the Mandarin Blueprint Method along with other cooperating companies we're working with to learn Mandarin online for a fraction of the price of what it costs
and
for university,
in a fraction of the time,
and a fraction of the time, and all of that. But it's not going to extend out to that point if we can't at least get $15 a month for people who are on it or whatever. That's the price of the course. It's very reasonable, and so anyway, look. We get it that in the internet culture, sometimes people just expect everything to be free, and that's why we give a lot of stuff away for free. And if for those of the people who think that, do the pronunciation mastery course. That's free, and I've never met anybody who didn't find at least some benefit from that course. And for beginners, they're going to find a huge amount of benefit from that course. So, just a comment about that, and thank you for all of your support. We really do appreciate it, and we're going to try to keep this startup going and get you guys some more great material. It's a fun process. It's so much to think about sometimes, but I do love it.
And we're making progress on that every single day. So because we've got people like Luke who are just smashing through it. And we're like, oh god, we need to make sure we have the content there for people like our best clients, not best, but our clients who are absolutely smashing
people who are
through
most
the course.
committed. You could say.
You could say that, and we want to make sure that we expand the content as well as continuing to promote the course in its current form to new people as well. So thanks for your support, guys. We are working our butts off more than ever now. Yeah, because we have this sort of motivation to keep us going. So.
100%. So, normal sort of requests at the end. If you're watching this on YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you're in the podcast, leaving us a review on Stitcher or iTunes can help other people get access to this podcast when they're searching, Chinese podcast. And there's the course itself. The links are in the show notes always at the beginning. So the pronunciation mastery is free, and you can check out the free trials. So. We'd love to see you. We'd love to hear from you. Support at mandarinblueprint.com. And if you have any questions you'd like to talk about on the podcast. Oh, and also, still nobody has submitted a video yet for the challenge that we're putting out to people, which is when you get to the phase 4 or 5 of the course, and we have the paragraphs with the native audio. And so the challenge is this. Follow the shadowing instructions that we give in phase 4 and 5, and then pick a paragraph that you feel like you've mastered, you've shadowed it many times, and then after you feel like, okay, I can read this out loud properly, take a video with your iPhone or your smartphone and just send it in to us of you reading out loud the text. You don't have to do it while shadowing. You can just read out loud the text, and we'll critique it on the podcast. So we'd love to get that going, and also really anything that you want critiqued in terms of pronunciation, you can send that in, even if it's just a sentence or something like that. So that's all for this week. So thanks so much, guys.
Thanks very much.